I'm sorry, I'm at an age where I don't really care about saving the planet that much.
Do you think he was right to resign?
I think he was right to apologise.
I've been a Conservative for a long time. I've always seen them as an anti-establishment party.
What do you think people don't understand about being a Tory?
That most people are normal.
I don't object to the fact he went to Winchester. My problem is that he was head boy.
What does being a Conservative mean to you?
Freedom, opportunity, the ability to hang on to your own money and do your own thing, rather than the socialist left-wing dogma that we're being thrust down our throats all the time.
How long have you been a member for?
Well, I'm 90, so you can say...
You're 90?
Yes.
You don't look a day over...
Well, there you are. We won't argue about that.
And you get to be head boy by being sucking up to the headmaster, sucking up to the establishment, not challenging anything.
I've certainly, since I retired in '86 from the army, I have been a member of the Conservative Party.
What does being a Conservative mean to you?
Well, having to deal with all of that quite quite often.
I've been a Conservative for a long time. I've always seen them as an anti-establishment party.
Who specifically do you mean by the establishment?
I guess it's the left liberal establishment which runs the media, which runs the universities, which runs Whitehall.
Well, for me, it's about keeping one eye on the past and our heritage and preserving our institutions, but also looking forward. If you look back over history, Conservative governments have actually been some of the most radical whenever it comes to policy.
What would you say is the main issue facing the United Kingdom right now?
Getting a new member into place.
Most Tories, particularly now, are just normal people going about their everyday business, trying to help better the country.
I'm sorry, I'm at an age where I don't really care about saving the planet that much.
There's a protester going by saying Tories, 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 out. What would you, if you were to sit down with one of them and explain to them, what do you think you could find common ground with them?
Well, yes, because most of my friends are not Conservative, and a lot of them have said if I ever stood for election, that not only vote for me, but campaign for me. So
I like the fact that Liz Truss was loyal to Boris Johnson. I was a huge Boris Johnson fan.
Would you prefer Boris Johnson to have stayed on as Prime Minister?
Yes.
Liz hopefully is going to tackle the woke tendencies, which really is the major fight of our times.
What would you define wokeism as?
Well, I think it's the focus on identity politics, which has really helped destroy the Labour Party.
Do you think he was right to resign?
I think he was right to apologise. I think his resignation was forced upon him. I think he could have stayed on if his parliamentary colleagues gave him benefit of the doubt and supported him more.
I think it's fair to say they gave him a fair amount of benefit of the doubt over the course of his premiership. Do you think perhaps they ran out of benefits of the doubt?
I think Boris definitely made some mistakes and he apologised for those mistakes, but there's a difference between what actually took place and then the media narrative that was constantly being fed from inside Cabinet. And I think that's what ran away, and that kind of protracted, prolonged, damaging effect is what ended up making that sort of his premiership, come to its end. And unfortunately, I believe one of the contestants in this leadership contest was helping the media in that front.
I'm here to judge their characters. They are going to offer everything in the book.
Yep.
And it's a bid market. Well, I'm not in that.
Yeah.
I want to see what they're like as people.
Is it fair to say that a party that's been in government for 12 years isn't the establishment?
Yes, absolutely. They failed to tackle the establishment, and who've captured the institutions, who've captured Whitehall, and they did have a big overthrow of the establishment on Brexit, but they really haven't followed through on that.
I mean, the most Tory thing to happen is people's outfits. I mean, just go somewhere and people turn up in pink trousers and like flowery shirts. I mean, that's pretty Tory, yeah.
The Labour Party lost its support in the north of England due to first Brexit and secondly an obsession with identity politics.
Truss was loyal to Boris Johnson. I was a huge Boris Johnson fan, particularly at the last local election. I think he deserves a huge amount of loyalty for what he achieved. I think she's loyal to him, so she has my support, principally because of her loyalty, but also because of her economic package.
What would you be asking?
Planning. One of the big problems in this part of the world is the fact that developers are walking all over our local councils because there's no local plan in place, particularly just north of Eastbourne. And the Conservative controlled council has been arguing with ministers that the target of houses they require to be built is too high. And consequently, local people are voting to vote Greens and Lib Dems in and vote Conservatives out, because they believe the Conservatives are supporting this growth in housing. So I want, and Liz Truss has said publicly that she wants to change the top-down numbers of houses being built. So I want to hopefully ask a question or hear a bit more about that.
The biggest issue has got to be how to tackle inflation and drive the economy forward as we recover from COVID. 100%, that's the biggest issue, yeah.
And then, do you trust either of them to take that on?
Do you know, I actually trust them both. And this is the interesting thing for me. And the reason why I think I'm probably going to end up supporting Liz is because I trust her more optimistic view. I trust the fact that she wants to cut taxation in order to help grow the economy. And because I trust them both, that's why I'm going to choose the more optimistic version of the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so Boris wasn't really captured, he just wasn't interested in detail. And then he lost his nerve completely over COVID. And Sage is another example of something that needs massive reform, so that we don't have the ridiculous nonsense of lockdown again. And lockdown, without question, killed more people than it saved. And I think it's and Liz Truss has sworn never to introduce lockdown again.
Fag end of this idea that Tories are all posh people or they don't understand normality, but that's not my experience of the party.
I think this nonsense about the green levy, that's got to be looked at again. That's ridiculous. That's penalising people. Well, in China they built, how often are they building a coal-fired power station? Is it one a week at the moment in China? It's some sort of silly statistic like that. Well, why aren't they looking at old towns? Why should we have to suffer the pain of that? So there you go.
I think
right wing.
I think I might know the answer to this question. BP recorded record profits this week. Would you support a windfall tax on them?
No.
Why not?
Because you need profits to invest, and we need BP to go and get those oil wells in the North Sea that are not producing at the moment. The only reason they've made massive profits is because the oil price has gone through the roof. So no, it's a false argument.
And all of this, one thing I do hope sincerely is that once this leadership contest comes to an end, everyone comes back together. Because there's definitely more that unites us than divides us. That's very true. And there are clear differences between Conservatives and people that support the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats. And it's important that the electorate in 2 years' time gets a very clear, defined picture of those differences. So I sincerely hope that whatever the outcome of this leadership election, everyone can rally around the leader.
What would it take for you to vote Labour, ever?
The Conservative Party to abandon its core principles, its policies to be completely disaligned with my beliefs, and then the Labour Party to fundamentally change its core belief and have a credible leader who I believe could implement them.